Every year, there's a guy drafted in the top 5, 10, 15 who just doesn't pan out like everyone thought he would. This is what we call a draft bust, but you probably knew that by now. Let's see where they are today. We're going to start off with probably the most famous draft bust in NFL history, Jamarcus Russell, when he was drafted number 1 overall in 2007. Jamarcus Russell started all 3 seasons at LSU, and in 06 he threw for over 3,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and this was a weaker quarterback class, but it was a battle in the Sugar Bowl between him and Notre Dame quarterback Brady Quinn, and whoever performed better that game would be the number 1 overall pick in 07, and Russell performed better, and well, that pretty much solidified it. When the Raiders drafted him, it seemed like he could possibly save the franchise, but there were a lot of problems. Jamarcus was really lazy, and he was getting fat, and he was also addicted to a certain purple drink. Obviously, it's not Kool-Aid. It should be easy to figure out. I don't know if I can show it on YouTube or not, but I think you know what it is. And then there's the infamous blank disc story where they gave Jamarcus Russell a blank DVD and they told him to go watch it. And then the very next day, he said that he watched it. He watched all the plays, the blitzes and all that, even though there were no plays on there. And it was at that moment the Raiders knew there was a big problem. In case you didn't figure out already, Jamarcus Russell's NFL career was a failure. In just 31 games, he only threw for above 4,000 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions, and after just his 3rd season, he was done entirely in the NFL. 15 years later, he seems like he's in a lot better place, and he's come back to his alma mater in Alabama, coaching as their quarterback coach. Now in college, Corey Coleman was a dog. He was one of the most electric players in college football, and it was one of the reasons why Baylor was so good. And in 2014, they almost made it to the college football playoff, and when he left in 2016, they finished 6-6. So he was a big impact on the team, and it seemed like there was no way he could fail in the NFL unless he got drafted by the Browns, and that's exactly what happened. And they're a little bit better now, but at the time they were the factory of sadness. Maybe they still are. And in common Browns fashion, he completely failed with the team. After only 2 seasons, they moved on from him. He played for the Giants, and he also bounced around from the Patriots, the Chiefs, and some other teams. And he was also part of that infamous 0-16 Browns team. And as you can see from the stats, he was awful. Not even 500 yards cracked. Just sad. If there were one play to summarize his career, would be in the final game of 2017 against the Steelers, where with under a minute left in the final play of the game pretty much, Corey Coleman on 4th down dropped the pass, and if he caught this, they would have gotten a 1st down. He would have gone out of bounds, and they would have had a chance to score and win the game, which would be their first and only win of the season to avoid an 0-16 season. In 2023, Coleman played for the Philadelphia Stars for the USFL, and he was not bad at all. He was one of the better wide receivers in the league, but he's not playing in the UFL this season, and he's not on an NFL team, so you never know, his NFL or just football career in general might be over. We move on to our next player, and that's Mitch Trubisky, who was drafted by the Chicago Bears 2nd overall in 2017. Now at UNC, Mitch Trubisky only started 1 full season, and he wasn't bad, but I don't think he should have been the 2nd quarterback taken. I mean, Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes were better in college and coming into the NFL. I just don't get it. Now, he had a very bad rookie season, but after his sophomore year in 2018, things were looking bright, not just for him, but the Bears' future in general. He was named to the Pro Bowl team after he threw over 3,000 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, and led the Bears to the playoffs. I'm not gonna lie, that's not worthy of a Pro Bowl appearance at all, but I mean, hey, it's the Pro Bowl, it's the NFL, what do you expect? But then 2019 and 2020 hit, and Mitch Trubisky just wasn't it. The Bears were still decent, but it was clear that he was not the guy for the future, and in 2020 he only threw a little over 2,000 yards, 16 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions, and that was his last season with Chicago. Like I said, 2020 was the last season for him with the Bears, as they would decline his 5th-year option, and in the 2021 offseason, he would sign a 1-year deal with the Bills, where he didn't do anything, and then he'd sign with the Steelers, where he was arguably even worse, and he's now back with the Bills. And if any team starts him as a QB1 at this point, they're very desperate right now. Our next player is Sam Darnold, who was drafted 3rd overall by the Jets in 2018. At USC, Sam Darnold wasn't too bad. In his sophomore year in 2016, he took over the Trojans when they were 1-3, and he led them to the Rose Bowl game, and they finished with a 10-3 record and won the Rose Bowl. And in 2017, he was a Heisman hopeful, and the USC Trojans were a national championship contender. But they were kind of disappointing. They finished 11-3 and lost in the Cotton Bowl, and Sam Darnold had a down year from 2016, but he was still a top quarterback prospect in 2018. To be honest, that down, disappointing year in 2017 should have been a warning, but we all ignored it. Of course, he was drafted number 3 overall, and well, he was a major disappointment. In 2018, his rookie year, he was alright. 2019 was a step up, but 2020, he was awful. Only 9 touchdowns and 11 interceptions, and that was the year they were tanking for Trevor Lawrence, just to ultimately end up with Zach Wilson at number 2, which is the most New York Jets thing to ever happen. After the 2020 season, he was traded to Carolina, where he'd actually go off to a 3-0 start in 2021. However, he would fall off after that. In 2022, they would trade for Baker Mayfield, and he would serve as the backup, and he didn't do too bad. But after they drafted Bryce Young in 2022, he was shipped off, he was signed by the 49ers, where he was a backup there, and he actually almost won a Super Bowl, which would have been really funny. Out of all the guys in the 2018 draft class, he would have been the first to win a Super Bowl. In 2024, he'll be playing for the Minnesota Vikings, where he'll be in competition with rookie J.J. McCarthy in probably the worst QB competition of 2024. And the last player we're going to be talking about is Josh Rosen, who was drafted 10th overall in 2018 by the Arizona Cardinals. At UCLA, Josh Rosen was a legend, and his stats might not be eye-popping, but he was very, very good. This included a crazy comeback in Week 1 of 2017 against Texas A&M, which pretty much placed himself in legendary status, not just at UCLA, but in college football. And it really sucks during this time that UCLA was so bad. If you place Josh Rosen on the current UCLA team, they could have a 10-win season. You never know. Entering the 2018 draft, Josh Rosen was seen as a potential number 1 overall pick, and when he fell to 10, it shocked a lot of people, and it was a great pick at the time for the Cardinals. However, the Cardinals would end up regretting this one heavily. In his rookie year in 2018, Josh Rosen would throw for a little over 2,000 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Pretty bad rookie season, but there's still room for improvement. But the Cardinals never gave him that. I say this because in 2019, the Cardinals would hire Cliff Kingsbury as their new head coach, and he wanted a new quarterback. So with the 1st overall pick, they would draft Kyler Murray, number 1 overall, and they would send Josh Rosen out of town and trade him to the Dolphins, where in Miami, he was awful. And this was his last year really starting in the NFL. Since then, Rosen has bounced around from the Bucks, Falcons, 49ers, and Browns, and his NFL career is long over. Say what you want about Josh Rosen, but his growth was really stunted after he was traded away from the Cardinals in his rookie season. I think if he stayed there and Cliff Kingsbury developed him, I think he could have turned into a decent starting quarterback in the NFL, but now he sees himself bouncing around from practice squad to practice squad, and his NFL career is over. And that's the end of the video. Bye-bye.